And now, this is Module 13. And Module 13, and then of course the material, Module 13 starts a new test for the students. And there are three short modules at the end on stuff that we haven't talked much about. That we need to cover, but there will be fairly short modules. But this module 13, shrinkage prevention, is a very, very important module. And I think some of the people watching this on iTunes that aren't students may think, gosh, that's a really kind of weird thing to be talked about in college, shrinkage prevention. Nevertheless, if you, and I'm talking to my students now, if you end up becoming a manager of a retail establishment, there might be some exceptions. You might run an accounting business or something like that where this is not that big a deal. But if you're talking about a store, a restaurant, many of the typical types of things we're talking about a retailer. Shrinkage prevention is going to be the key to your job. If you're talking about a store, as a manager, you're not responsible for a lot of stuff. I know I talk to the people. Target has come in, and they're hiring people to go into the management track. And I can remember asking them, I really would love for y'all to talk about store layout and how inventory decisions are made. And I can remember, they didn't really want to talk about that. And then afterwards, I asked them a little bit about it. And the one guy that's a manager here, real nice guy, and I'm really hoping that he ends up hiring some of my students again this year, some of y'all again this year, said, Don, I've never even met any of those people. They tell us we got a certain place and they say bottled water is going to be there. And you're going to stack it up, and we've got those containerized, the way the shelves are built, it's like stacking containerized freight on one of those ships that travels around the world. You just kind of stack it up. Everything goes in its spot. There's a slot for every single item that goes in there. It's pre-designed to hold bottles of water. And they tell us that goes here. And then we put it there. And then we don't decide where it goes. We don't decide how high it is. We don't decide how wide it is. We don't decide anything We just do what they tell us. And he's never even met any of those people. So many of the traditional things that you think about when you talk about being a store manager, you as a manager are not responsible for. Other people make those decisions. And if they make, if for example, the store you work in a clothing store, and they fill that clothing store full of plaid, and that one of the big guru type of people who projects fashion trends has said, wow, this fall is going to be totally plaid, man. And they turn out to be totally wrong, man. That's not your fault as a manager. See, the people made the wrong decision about inventory. The company's sales are down. You had to put a lot of stuff on discount, or even like just box it up and sell it for 10, 15 cents on the dollar to some closeout retailer. That's not your fault. You didn't make that decision. Even if sales are down in many cases, they won't really blame that on you. If SSS, same store sales, this month are down compared with SSS last year, it's hard to blame that on the managers. Because the buyers are the ones that filled the store full of merchandise, and they decided that all the kids this year going back to school are going to be wearing blue jeans. And the kids decided, that blue jeans are so yesterday, we're not going to wear blue jeans. And you can take your blue jeans and put them on clearance sale or ship them off to a closeout retail. We don't want them. But that's not your fault. So you didn't make the decision. Now, but shrinkage is the one thing that's going to be your fault. So one thing you're going to be measured on directly, very likely, the bonus or your evaluation at the end of the year, however it is that they evaluate how well you're doing, one of the key elements of that's going to be the shrink. That's something you're directly responsible for. Now Module 13 is internal shrinkage, meaning internal shrinkage can be somebody stealing, but it can also be stuff that's mishandled. or lost or poorly documented or accounted for. For example, something comes in, stuff comes in, somebody reports on the computer that you got a box of $100 jackets. You got a box of $100 jackets. But you didn't actually get a box of $100 jackets. It never came in. But somehow it got on the computer that way that it did. Well, that's, 100 times $100, that's $10,000 at retail that was just stolen from your store, that just shrank from your inventory. That's a $10,000 difference in actual and theoretical inventory. And that's what shrinkage is basically, is anything that's lost, stolen, broken, mishandled, or for whatever reason is not there and it should be. In terms of when you're a manager, honestly, it's the difference between what is actually in inventory and theoretically in inventory. What the computer thinks is in the inventory and what is actually in the inventory. In many cases, if you're one of those places that they only do a physical inventory once a year, this may not show up until they do the physical inventory at the end of the year. You may not have any idea what has happened. I think if you sell higher end stuff, if like you're talking about a Lowe's or a Home Depot, you're a manager there, or someplace, you got typically items more than $100 or more than $200. They keep a separate kind of perpetual track of that, and you're required, once a week or so to check that inventory and make sure that a whole box. And I have a story that one of my students told about a whole carton crate shipment of flat screen televisions disappearing, and you should find that out sooner in theory, although that may not actually happen. In your mind, it may be back there in the back. So that's what shrinkage is, and then I'm talking about internal shrinkage. Now, the external shrinkage, what I really mean is shoplifting or some other type of scam, like a return scam or shoplifting perpetuated by a customer, somebody from outside the organization, or an outside problem or outside loss, and that's Module 14. So internal shrinkage, anything lost, stolen, anything done in an internal manner. Now, even before companies developed these electronic methods of limiting shoplifting, all the scanners and all the different things that they have, the ink tags, the exploding ink things, and all the different things that they have for the buzzer that goes off if somebody tries to steal something. Even before that technology was developed, internal shrinkage, and that was, when external shrinkage is a huge problem for many retailers across the country, internal shrinkage has always been a bigger problem than external shrinkage. Always, always, always been a bigger problem than external shrinkage. And it's where internal shrinkage, when it occurs, you generally lose huge chunks of things. Whereas, the one odd person that slips in once a month and manages to steal something, that's not good. Be better if we caught them, be better if we prevented it. But it's not as important as preventing internal theft. Now, I also am going to refer in this next little thing, in this thing that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to start off or reference this by listing a bunch of weak points for internal theft, and things you might not have thought about, and then talking about some of the solutions. The other thing is that many of y'all are honest. You grew up in small towns where everybody knew everybody. If somebody got caught shoplifting, the whole town knew about it. Everybody that went to church with that teenager that got caught, everybody knows their mom and dad, everybody knows everybody, and it's a really big deal. Now, many people grew up in big cities where shoplifting, theft, and other things happen a lot more. The ethic of honesty tends to be much weaker in people who grew up and live in big cities than it does in people who live in small towns where everybody knows everybody. If you're a really honest person yourself, it's even more important that you pay attention to and take what I have to tell you here to heart, because it's really going to be a shame if you, an honest person, ends up losing your job or having your career cut short or damaged because you trusted other people too much, when you need to follow some of these rules. Okay, so I'm going to start with weak points. I'm going to go through them, and then I'm going to talk about solutions. Now, you also need to pay close attention to the test study guide here, because you do have assignments related to this, and some of the material from your assignments is going to find its way into the exams. So there's a reading associated with that, just like we had for some of the earlier tests, where you had to make sure that you took some readings. The service quality for test 1, you had to take, I told you, make sure that you have those service quality dysfunction stories. The tests are open book, open notes, and make sure that you printed those out and are ready to access those things. Your browser will be locked down through the Respondus Lockdown browser when you take the exam, so you won't be able to right-click, you'll be able to go over the internet and stuff like that in the middle of the exam. First internal theft weak point: any blind spot in the store, any place where people cannot be seen, generally, where people cannot be seen. There may be a certain section that's blind, areas behind counters and underneath counters, that little drawer underneath the counter where the concave mirrors, the cameras cannot see. So any place, as a manager, you need to understand how the cameras work, and then watch and see where the cameras don't see. If you have those concave, is it concave or convex? Concave mirrors, that in many cases they set them up so you can see almost the whole floor through those mirrors if you get in the right location. But there are areas where those can't be seen. Back rooms, like if you've got a warehouse or a back room area, restrooms in the back. I do not like having employee restrooms in the back. I'd rather have the employees go in the same restroom as the customers up front, where they can, things can be seen. So, things like that. Any place that's a blind spot is a weak point. Employee belongings are a weak point. Anytime you see employee belongings, anytime that the employees are able to go in and mess around with their belongings in the same place where they have merchandise, that's not good. So employee belongings are a weak point. One of the stories for that is chicken strips. And then hopefully I'll have a couple of others from your group that I can use. Giving away stuff. This happens a lot in restaurants, in particular, where waitresses will give stuff away, or people to improve their tip, or people will give stuff away in a store in order to their friends, or I don't know, makes them feel better. And we have a couple stories for that. Employee purchases. Whenever employees are buying things, that's a potential problem area where abuses occur and everything. So and had stories over the years for that. Cash register. Cash register is a weak point for internal security. Money disappearing from the cash register. People ringing up no sale and taking the money. People running an open cash register. And I've got several really good stories for the cash register for y'all. If I don't get one from your class, I'll use one from previous classes. Coupon clipping. Coupons are a potential problem coupons are a potential problem because they represent cash, and it's not as big a problem in retail stores, but it's a big problem in restaurants. It's a big problem in other areas of business. In my former life as a in my former life, during part of the 10 years that I worked in casinos in Las Vegas, and I've got a couple stories that kind of, I don't know, you could kind of consider that retailing, I guess, but I have a couple good stories that show the dangers of, you know, coupons and couponing. And I've got several different stories over the years. Sometimes in restaurants, you have a problem with too much food disappearing. And one of the main ways that this happens is that the cooks, at the end of the day, if you let the cooks take the food home with them, well, they'll end up cooking a whole bunch of food and saying, well, we got all this leftover food, I guess we'll just have to put it in a bag and take it home, that kind of thing. And I've actually, the students I have 3 different stories related to this that students have told me in the classes where we met in the traditional classes. Opening and closing. I don't have any stories about opening and closing, but opening and closing is a time of internal theft weakness. You know, where it's the time when a whole bunch of people are leaving together or going out, and then in you open, you have people go in, there's almost no customers, and there's not anybody watching what's going on. Maybe the manager's not paying attention because he's got to start the computers and everything. Everybody's distracted. The trash can. The trash can, and this is true for regular retail stores. Some of our biggest internal theft, and including I've got a story that will almost certainly be there, whether I get some stories from your class or not, by Hollister. I've got a couple of other stories that come from that come from local restaurants. I know restaurateurs, the trash can is a big problem area where, you know, people will take the boxes of lobster or boxes of filet mignon or something like that, and they'll take it, put it in a trash bag, throw it out in the trash can, and come by and pick it up at 4 o'clock in the morning. The back door is a problem area. I mean, when, you know, things go out the back door, and in many restaurants they have that little thing, the warning when somebody, but they almost always, if you drive by about 90% of the restaurants, that back door, which is supposed to be locked, is propped open. It's just too much of a hassle for the manager to go, and every time somebody wants to go outside, to go out and unlock that door. People are taking smoke breaks and stuff like that. They'll prop the door open and things like that. So the back door is a problem area in any type of retail business, restaurant, store, anything. Really, even in Goodfellas, you know, they talked about the fact that stuff came in the front door, came in one door and then went out the back door. So stuff disappears out the back door. So some of the solutions for the back door are similar to the solutions for the trash can. The loading dock. And I have stories about the loading dock. I've got a story from Lowe's about the loading dock, and that a student wrote about stuff disappearing from the loading dock. The loading dock may not sound like a big deal, but honestly, it is the biggest internal theft weak point. Bigger for a regular store, maybe for a restaurant, even for a restaurant, to me, the loading dock. The reason is that when stuff disappears off the loading dock, it doesn't disappear one item at a time. Like whole boxes of stuff or even crates of stuff disappear from the loading dock, and then you really are going to lose your job. You get a couple of crates of merchandise disappear into somebody's pickup truck off the loading dock, and you are going to be looking for a new job because your shrink is too high. So the loading dock is a really big one. I'm unlikely to talk about disbursements or to have that on the test because many of y'all are not familiar with it. Disbursements count for any retail organization. Even those retail organizations that are not really prone or do not have a huge shrinkage problem. Embezzlement is a really huge big deal. And the weird thing, you know, you see these stories about embezzlement, And then you find out later on, people stole like $200,000, and they give them 6 months with an ankle bracelet. There's a guy up in Kentucky, and I know I played cards with him. There's a guy up in Kentucky that stole several $1,000,000, and they gave him 6 months with an ankle bracelet. You know, he's a really likable guy. He spent a lot of that several $1,000,000 around town. You know, he spent a lot of money around town. He spent a lot of money, you know, he spent a lot of money in the card game too, I guess. I don't want to say that. That might not be true. I might have made up the part about I didn't, but I don't want to admit it on film. But the guy really, literally, and they had him in the paper, and he had 6 months with an ankle bracelet. So the disbursements, the person that handles the bookkeeping, and particularly the person that pays the bills, that's a particular danger spot. And the thing that makes it, usually when you see these things happen, it's because somebody doesn't follow the procedures that I'm going to outline. And they have a bookkeeper, and many of y'all, many business people in general, they're kind of math phobic, and they don't like spreadsheets and math and auditing and going over financial records. And so they have somebody that will do that, and they just say, you take care of all the bookkeeping. So disbursements is a weak point. Gift cards, discount cards, various different promotion devices. Gift cards, discount cards, promotion devices. Those are big, huge problem areas where, for example, we know there's in the mall here, there's some kind of Charlie's Steakeria or something like that. One of the stories we had, somebody, you know, they had a bunch of these gift cards, and somebody stole a whole box of them, activated them, because the owner of the place had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 code. You know, that was their password. And then all over Daniel Boone High School, people were selling these discount cards. If give you a $20 gift card for, you know, $3 or something like that, and you know, all these high school kids coming in with these $20 gift cards that they you know, that they never sold. So that kind of thing. Then also there are a lot of the people who work as waiters and waitresses talk about some of the scams that waiters and waitresses pull with these discount cards and different promo devices. There's coupon, you know, related to. It's kind of the same thing technically as a coupon clipping. For example, at a waitress may, you know, have a discount coupon from the internet, and then if a customer comes in and they order something, they pay, say, $40 for their meal, and then the waiter or waitress knows this discount code on the coupon, so she'll go in when she rings it up, she'll put that discount code, and they pay in cash, you know, $40 plus whatever the tip is, they pay in cash, and the waiter or waitress can go in and put in that discount code and claim that that's, you know, 15% off, and so they can take $6 off that, and then in the company's book, the restaurant's book, that they're only collecting $34. And at the end of the night, when the waiter or waitress cleans up, they've stolen almost from everybody that pays cash, they've stolen 15%. And because most of those people do not know this special internet promo code. So promo devices, promo codes, discount cards, very similar to the coupon thing, or things. A number of different receipt scams. I've got a story from Sonic. I've got another story from Pizza Hut, where people will run a receipt scam, and that's the Pizza Hut story. For example, there's a certain day when they have a buffet, and many, you know, people would come in and they would order the buffet, and which, you know, many people order the same thing. If people paid cash, he would take their cash, give them the change, go back, you know, act like he's ringing up and give them the change. But at the end of the day, maybe he had, say, 35 customers, and 10 of them paid in debit card, and he rang those up, and he had the other 25 people pay, you know, couples that came in pay in cash. And so what he did was he just used one receipt, you know, used like 3 or 4 receipts and claimed he only had 5 customers that day when he had 35. And so the other 30-something customers that paid in cash, he just kept that money and he used just a couple receipts to cover all those 25 people that didn't pay. So that type of scam with receipts. And I've got a couple stories for that that y'all should read so that you understand the concept. And then will be test questions. You know, you check the test study guide and I'll explain to you how we'll ask you questions about these different things on the exam. Back rooms, bathrooms, dressing rooms, employee break rooms. Now that's similar to the blind spot concept, but in the blind spot I'm also talking about places on the floor of the business where there's no camera. Employee break rooms, bathrooms in the back or even bathrooms up front, dressing rooms, all of those things, you not only get scammed. Dressing rooms, is a big, huge problem, is you not only have scams that are pulled by customers, but you also have scams that are pulled by employees that work there. One of the dressing room scams, I believe, involved, whenever somebody would go in and try something on and they would take the tag off for them so they could try it on and see how it looked. And then the people would be finished and they would take the stuff back, and instead of putting the tag back on, they would just put it in a bag and put it in with their personal stuff, and then they would carry it out at the end of the night. All kinds of different scams and stores like that. Scams with clearance discounted items. Clearance discounted items scam type of thing, similar to employee purchases. I probably won't ask a separate question about that on the exam. I'll kind of put that in with employee purchases. Okay, so now that I have talked about internal theft weak points, I'm going to talk about some of the solutions. And I really recommend for this that y'all as students that you go ahead and that you go ahead and have some of those stories ready so that you can kind of look at the stories as I go through these. And I would, as I talk about one thing, I'll go through it, and then you can kind of look at a story that goes with that, and you can see how that would solve the problem.
Okay, and now for the solutions to the weak points that we've identified. First of all, the register, which is probably the biggest weak point, honestly, where most of your problems are going to occur. Several things do. One thing, check for excessive no sale. A no sale ring up is a red flag. Too many of them may indicate that they're ringing up, they're charging the customer whatever the money is, ringing up no sale, taking the customer's money, giving them their change, everything, and then at the end of the night they're pocketing whatever excess money that they have. So no sale is, too many no sale ring ups is a really bad sign. Typically the cash registers have a protection mechanism in them that prevents them from opening up for no reason. There is time, a customer may come up and ask for 4 quarters to get change. And I think now, particularly in these situations where many of your convenience stores and other places around the country have some sort of gambling device, either one of those games with the quarters where the money, they try to make the money fall off, or they have pseudo slot machines or something like that give away free gas or free prizes. You do have a lot of people coming up asking for change, and so there may be a reason for it, but it's something that needs to be checked. If a particular cashier or person running the register has more than everybody else, or seems to have too many, or all of a sudden in the middle of the night when there's only one person there, you're getting all these no-sale ring-ups, that's a bad sign. Canceled orders and voids. Typically, any void over a certain amount is potential problem area. Now, it is also true that it's very common in the modern era with the scanner system that something will be accidentally scanned twice and then has to be taken off. But voids and canceled orders and things like that are potential problem area. They could write void on a receipt that the customer doesn't pick up. Pocket the money, the person running the register. So that's another area. In many cases, voids or canceled orders over a certain amount may need a manager signature, or a manager may need to check off on that, or even use a special key. There's like a manager's key for voids or cancellations. It's very important to enforce single custody restrictions wherever this is possible, where only one person has access to the money. That's kind of one of the basic rules of internal control in accounting, is that a single person is responsible for their cash and their money that's in their cash register, and there shouldn't be 3 or 4 different people. Now, that in some situations that's not always practical. There may be several people that need to get in and out of a cash register, but where possible, enforce a single custody. Removing cash periodically, for one thing, it's a theft deterrent, but it also, I think, is a deterrent for internal theft, a temptation. If somebody that's making $8 an hour has a register with several $1,000s in it in cash, that's just too much, maybe too much temptation for some of the weaker the weaker examples among our species. Audit whenever you change the register, count the money down then. Do not allow refunding, rebating, and other types of things at the cash register to be done at a different place. Refunds is another area of weak point, and you don't want to do that at the cash register. Have a separate area for that. Some companies will go a little bit farther. They have a 1-800-NO-RECEIPT. In bars and nightclubs, it's now become very common to use cameras. Bartenders, the bartender job is one where there's a lot of opportunity for people who are, kind of sticky-fingered or have long fingers to take some money for themselves. And so they're using cameras, remote cameras. It doesn't do any good to have cameras now if nobody watches the camera. So that means you have cameras, somebody's got to watch the cameras. And mystery shoppers are another, when mystery shoppers go in, they get a receipt. If they're not getting a receipt, they're buying something, they're not getting a receipt, or they're not offered a receipt or something like that, that can be an example of a situation where you have an internal security problem. So all of those kind of things for the cash register, which is probably the most important, and thus very likely to be on the exam. Employees giving away free stuff, that's one of the things that we talk about. It's a restaurant example. The servers a lot of times have control over salads and drinks, and particularly non-alcoholic drinks, and they can give away salads and drinks to people and not charge them for it, and then that improves their tip. But of course, the money doesn't get to the cash register at the restaurant, and so that's a theft type of thing. I think every now and then, if you own a nightclub or a bar, if your bartender buys a drink, quote, buys a drink, which means he gives a free drink to a regular customer, to me that in that business that's kind of expected in some places, and I wouldn't worry about it too much. Every now and then somebody will be, if you as a waiter or waitress, you'll have a family that comes in and they're nice customers, and for whatever reason they sat in an area where nobody recognized that was their table and they had to wait a long time, or there's some sort of discombobulation in the back and it takes 20 minutes to get their entree out when it should take 5 or 10. To give them a free drink or a free salad or something like that, free dessert or something like that, is to me is not that terrible. It may be a moral sin, but it certainly is not a business crime. But at the same time, if that kind of thing is done, I think better if the manager approves it. So giving away free stuff is a problem. I think the solutions for this are to routinely, but in a random way, audit the orders. Whoever the front manager is, like every order ending in a 9 has to be checked. You have to go to the table, make sure that all the drink orders, check the order on the computer, go to the table, check the things, and then that way the waiters and waitresses know that the manager routinely 1 in 10 at a random way checks the orders, make sure everything is right, make sure that the appetizers and the drinks and the salads and all of that are on the ticket, and make sure everything's working okay. Make them at the higher level. One of the things, make the managers fill out an audit report. In other words, if this tonight a manager's supposed to audit, the front manager's supposed to audit every ticket or every number that ends in a 9, well, then he's got to fill out an audit report. Every ticket that ends in a 9, 1 in 10 basically, that ends in a 9, he's got to fill out an audit report for that, either on the computer or by hand if you have to. Using mystery shoppers is another way to try to uncover this, although this kind of thing tends to happen to people that are friends of the employees or people the employees know. I think if the managers are paying attention, if the managers, the servers know that the manager is going to check every so often. It might not be 1 in 10, it can be 1 in 20. But I don't like, when I think what a lot of managers do is they start getting suspicious of a particular server, and then they check that everything that server does, and none of the other servers are checked, and they don't do anything about it if they do catch it. Had a student write something yesterday, a project that they had to do yesterday. They talked about the fact that the employees steal stuff, they do stuff they're not supposed to, they don't respect the managers, and no matter what, nobody ever gets fired. So I think if the servers know that you're going to check randomly, or somebody's going to check, and it's not picking on them, it just comes up at a random time that an order has to be checked. Everything on it has to be checked. The manager has to go up to the table, check your drink's okay, your appetizer's okay. I think that's the solution to the employees giving free stuff away. The back room, I'm going to put for the exam. The back room, employee bathroom, if there is one, the break room. We'll put all those together for kind of like one question on the exam, if that makes it onto the exam. All of those are internal theft weak points. And here are some of the solutions. First of all, employees should not have their personal items out on the floor when they're working. Make them put their purses, their other personal stuff, put them in a locker, let them lock it, put it somewhere in the back room. Do not allow people that are not supposed to be in the back room, and strictly enforce no merchandise in these areas. There should be no merchandise from the floor, in the break room, in the employee bathroom, in the back room, and people should only be there when they're supposed to be there. In other words, if people are on break, they can be in the employee break room. But you don't want somebody, you see somebody wandering in and out of the employee break room 4 or 5 times during their shift. That shouldn't be happening. They should use the employee break room, or should go to the bathroom when they need to use the bathroom for the purpose for which the bathrooms are intended. They shouldn't be wandering in and out of there, and they definitely should not be there when they're not supposed to be. And if you have to, you may have to put a scanner up. I think it in places in big cities or in situations where they have a lot of internal theft, it wouldn't surprise me to see them putting scanners up as you walk into employee break rooms or into the back room or something. Also, the back room where stuff is stored and things like that, people shouldn't be back there unless they have something to do back there. So you see people in the back room too much, they're doing something, they're smoking, or they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing back there. So the back room, in particular, you have to enforce that only people that have a purpose back there should be back there. The loading dock. Now, internal theft, I'm kind of lumping into internal theft. That part of shrinkage, which is mishandling, misuse, poor record keeping, because the quickest way to have huge shrinkage for yourself as a manager, when you start your managerial career and you do everything right and you get to the end of the year and they come in and they do the actual physical inventory, and all of a sudden you've got a huge shrink or a much bigger shrink than you should have. The loading dock is one of those areas where you can lose a lot of stuff quickly. The quickest way to get yourself fired is to have people taking in stuff off the trucks without checking. Without going through the packing slips and making sure that this is there, that is there, this is there, that is there, making sure that everything is there. And it's also the kind of place where a whole pallet of stuff, a huge amount of money can disappear like that very quickly from the loading dock. Whereas in other parts of the store, maybe they're stealing, one item at a time, and they're not, and that's all that they can kind of clip you for, is like one item at a time, and you can survive that a lot better than you can survive something happening on a loading dock. Use a camera-only area. Have a camera on the area where the loading dock is. Do not allow other people back in the area where stuff is loaded and unloaded. In other words, if you notice the Walmart stores in our area, they have signs and everything else saying, this is an authorized area. Unauthorized personnel should not be back here, and they got cameras on it and other types of things. Don't have one person unload a truck. You should have teams unload a truck. And that's a kind of internal security issue where, the idea in internal security is that no one person by themselves should be able to steal something without it being noticed. And so you have teams unload it. I think having a good, trusted senior stock person or somebody that's a full-time employee or manager, check the packing slips and make sure that what is on there. I mean, it really is important to check packing slips and make sure if it says there's this many of that, if there's this many of this item, that there are that many of that item. And so a trusted senior person should probably be used for that. Do not allow cars in the back of the store. Don't allow your employees to park in the back of the store where stuff is loaded and unloaded. I have several examples of people driving by and in the back and picking up a whole box of sweaters or a whole box of jackets being passed into somebody's truck or into somebody's car, and then they've driven off. And examples from our area, Hollister, I think, is the one example I have of something like that. So the loading dock is an area that requires special attention. I think the final thing there is not to allow people to deliver at just any time. Use strict loading times for that, and restrict the loading time. I know sometimes you'll have a driver come in and say, they had a wreck in Knoxville and there's nothing I could do about it, and that's okay once in a while, but generally you want to unload the trucks during a particular time. Now, reusable receipts is particularly an issue, and where the students have identified this thing being done over the years is particularly where you have the same thing being ordered. Where, like I think there's an example from a Pizza Hut where they have, or Pizza Inn, where they have the buffet, Sunday buffet, or they had a buffet, and most people come in and get the buffet. Well, then they get the buffet, they get the buffet, and then everybody comes through and gets the buffet. Well, everybody who pays for cash, the server just uses that same ticket over and over again. One of the ways to do this is to not allow servers to stack receipts. I think still, nevertheless, I know it is common at many of the restaurants to allow the server checks out at the end of the night. In other words, they have all their receipts or all the money that they're supposed to have, and then they go through and they count all that out, and they got their credit, the ones that were run with credit cards, or they count that in there, and so they only cash out once a night. I don't like that system. I like the system of pay somebody else collecting the money and paying on every receipt. But if you do use this, so I would recommend avoid using that system if you can. If you don't have any way around that, in other words, if the restaurant you manage, that's the system that they use where the servers check out, try to at least have a quick turnaround on it. Try to have them, don't let, like somebody that works lunch through dinner, try to at least at 3 in the afternoon when things are real slow, check them out twice or something like that. Stamp paid or used on a particular ticket. Numerically order the tickets so that you can see when the tickets came out, and if somebody is claiming that a person that came in at 5 o'clock has this ticket number, and you recognize that that's a ticket number that should have come out at 2 o'clock, then they're reusing some of their tickets. For split tickets, and that's split ticket's a particular problem where the server can kind of move the drinks around, and takes what they can do is they can charge the customers for the drinks, but then when they get done, they can remove the drinks from the ticket, and there's a theft problem that occurs that way. Check check the receipts, check the tickets, and see that things match, and particularly when you see a lot of splitting. And if servers are just constantly splitting, that's a bad sign. That's like a red flag. You see people and you see somebody come in, it's a family of four, and somehow that ticket gets split when it's pretty clear that dad was going to pay for everything, then that's a bad sign. I think manager vigilance is still necessarily the key here to the reusing receipts. I know in the Pizza Hut example, this person used the same receipt over and over and over and over again as long as people paid cash. And so he used the same receipt like 10 times. Well, you should know how many people came in, how many different tables there were, how many different tickets there should be, and somebody shouldn't be able to get away with that to the extent the examples that I've had. And even in Olive Garden, I think there was an example from Olive Garden where people would order soup and breadsticks, some real common item, or the all-you-can-eat pasta or something like that, and then the servers could kind of reuse that ticket over and over again if they had more people come in and do that and they paid cash. Opening and closing. Opening and closing is a time because you end up in a situation where it's possible maybe only one person's in the store. And I know where they have expensive merchandise, jewelry stores and things like that, it's very typical to have an open and close together rule. When you open the store in the morning, you wait till there's at least several people there, 2 or 3 people there, and everybody goes in together. The manager doesn't go in and wander around and do things for half an hour, or whoever has the key does not wander around and do things. When so you go in together in the morning. Don't allow one person in there by themselves. And then you have the leave together rule. In other words, it's time to leave. You set the alarm while everybody's there, and then everybody leaves together. And then you only deactivate the alarm when everybody comes in the morning. Blind spots. Blind spots are a problem area for both internal and external theft. You need to be, as a manager, very aware of where these things are. And I can remember seeing like videos of people who were thieves, and they're really good at figuring out where the cameras don't see things. In fact, you have all these movies where somehow somebody manages to get into a hotel, for example, with all the cameras they got and never be seen. And how did you wonder, how did they do that? Well, they know where the blind spots are. So the thieves are really good at looking for where the blind spots are, where there's merchandise that people can't see it. A lot of times for internal theft, the locked cases underneath, where you have items, expensive items, maybe electronics or jewelry or things like that that are on display. There's a blank thing on display, blank case on display, or maybe there might be an actual item on display, but a lot of the actual stock is kept in locked cabinets underneath. Don't allow employees to wander in and wander around in areas, especially if they're not working in that area. Try to readjust the cameras and mirrors to overcome the problem. You may have to take down an end cap display if it's blocking a key area of where you have a locked case of expensive electronics or something like that. Also, just a little bit of, once again, identifying or letting the loss prevention people know that these are the areas to concentrate on, and making sure that they pay attention to those areas in particular. Employee belongings. Employee belongings, people, employees have been known to put stuff in their purses or put stuff in their pockets if they're male. And so employee belongings are a internal theft weak point. There's a number of things that have been done, and some of these are a little bit strong, to be honest with you. I don't know if I would do this. I guess if it was my merchandise and my money, I might. But here are some of the things that have been done. Requiring employees to use clear purses, where you can see through purses. and handbags. We talked about the lockers and having a separate area for lockers so that they do not allow their employees to have their stuff out. Very similar to the locker. Don't allow them to carry their purses and their other stuff out on the floor. In the gambling business, it used to be that the dealers had to wear pants with no pockets. That's an old thing from the 50s and 60s. You have a shirt pocket that you put your tips in, but we were not allowed in that era to have pockets in your pants. That's how strong they were in the gaming industry, worried about people stealing stuff. So make sure that the employees make sure that the employees do not mix their personal merchandise out on the floor when they're working. Finally, check bags or purses before workers leave. I know Bed Bath & Beyond and some of the other stores in the area, when employees leave, a manager looks into their purse and things like that. Finally, you can run people through the scanners. In other words, when people leave the store, they're not allowed to leave out a back or side door or anything like that. They have to go through the scanner. Now, the checking the purses and the clear bags, that's a little strong. I know a lot of men, and I'm kind of touchy this way. We're a little bit touchy about sticking our hand down into women's purses or looking in women's purses. I never go in my wife's purse. They might have a bobatizer in there or something, and might end up losing a finger or something. And that's a little bit strong for me, but nevertheless, that's what many companies are doing. Disbursements. Disbursements is an area where you have losses and where you see, particularly those of you who have an entrepreneurial spirit and you go into business for yourself, there are a lot of examples of embezzlement. Type in Johnson City and embezzlement, and you'll see all these examples come up of where just in the last few months people have been arrested for different types of embezzling, usually from small businesses, a lot of times by the bookkeeper from small businesses. So I follow the internal control procedures to the letter. And I think if the internal control procedures say if this person writes the checks, somebody else needs to audit the checkbook. If this person or this group does payroll, somebody else has to go in from another department, has to go in and audit and check that. So if one person does it, another person checks it. I would definitely follow that rule. Too many people in the store, working. First of all, you shouldn't have too many people in the store working. Have managers and stockers and other people just to maintain extra awareness. That question definitely will not be on the exam. Employee discounts. Require the manager key for employee discounts. Check sizes where appropriate. Allow sales only during certain windows. In other words, the employee sales only during the last week of the month or only during designated periods. This is one where some of the retailers' feelings and strategy about this a little bit different than I remember. I know in the jewelry business, they give people like a 25% discount. Well, there's nothing in the store. Now, a 25% discount is actually more of a discount than that in terms of a discount of profit. Because if you've got 100% markup on something, a 25% discount takes away half of your profit. But still, nevertheless, there's nothing in a jewelry store that's not marked up considerably more than the employee would get with a 25% discount. So if they want to buy something for their mom or they want to buy something for a friend or something like that, in my opinion, you should just let them do it. Now, if you have a lower profit margin and your employee discount means you're selling at cost, many employers do not want their employees using that for their friends and for their family. They only want it to be for the employee. You have to write down your sizes. If you're male, you can only buy male stuff. You cannot buy stuff for your girlfriend or your wife, things like that. To me, that's not a really big deal. I mean, if somebody uses their employee discount to buy something for a friend or whatever, to me, that's not really internal theft. But it is something that the students have identified as something that the companies worry about, that the retailers worry about. The trash. The trash can is the biggest weak point, and it and the back door, which I probably will put together. The back door and the trash, we'll put those together if I have a question about that on the exam. For restaurants and even for retail stores, behind the cash register, and maybe, stuff that happens, weird stuff that happens in the dressing room, the biggest shrinkage problems. I think the dressing room for external theft is the biggest of them all. The cash register is the second biggest, and the trash in the back door, stuff going out the back door, stuff going into the trash, those are the biggest weak points. This trash can be the third biggest weak points. All kinds of stories about stuff going out the back door. Stuff goes out the back door and disappears. Even whole boxes full of sweaters and whole boxes full of jackets. People in the restaurant business stealing boxes of shrimp and lobster and filet mignons. And you notice as a manager, first of all, and this is kind of a joke, but if you notice your employees having too many fancy after dinner parties, where they have oysters and shrimp and lobster and filet mignons, and they all make, kind of minimum wage plus 50 cents, that's a bad sign. That's a kind of a joke. But in the restaurant business, what people will do is they'll put something in a bag, trash bag, take it out, put it in the trash can, come back at 3 or 4 in the morning and pick it up. And it happens all the time. It's probably the most common type of theft. Here are the solutions for this. Require clear plastic trash bags. Have the manager check all the trash. And that really can be a pain. If you've worked in a place, and I have, where you had to check all the trash going out after a while, you just start. But you really do have to check the trash. That's a good strategy, but really after a while, as a manager, you've done it 100 times, you just kind of, okay, that's all right, go ahead. And you have to realize, I think, that you can't just, okay, go ahead, I don't want to check it this time. You really do have to at least pretend to check it every single time. Maintain backdoor rules. Too many times, restaurants, retail stores, they have that, because the fire marshals requiring that be an exit, they have that alarm door in the back. And almost, if you drive by, 90% of the restaurants in our area are going to drive by their back door 90% of the time when they're open. Say, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they're getting ready for dinner, or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that back door is going to be propped open. I don't like the idea of propping the back door open so that people don't have to use the key to get in and out. Don't allow people to go out the back door. They don't have a reason. If you have servers do not need to go out the back door to smoke. If they're going out, if they're not on an authorized break, they shouldn't be out the back door. That means they got a customer sitting up in the front wanting something for about 10 minutes while they're out back smoking and talking on the phone. In particular now, with everybody having a cell phone and wanting to text, you're going to have employees out there texting, smoking, doing all sorts of things, even if they're not stealing. So maintain the back door rules. Do not prop the back door open. Lock the trash can if you have to after hours, so that nobody can come by at 4 in the morning and get stuff out of it. Also, you have in some areas, if you're in the rural areas where they don't have trash pickup, it's a favorite place for people to go by. They don't want to go by the dump, so they just drive by a restaurant and throw their trash in the restaurant, and pretty soon you've got a whole trash can full of stuff, and people clean fish and other things, and they clean deer and turkey, and then they don't want to put that in their own trash can, so they go and throw it in your trash can. You got this big huge smell, which turns all your drives all your customers away. So locking the trash can after hours. Don't allow anybody to go back towards the trash can or to do anything without you checking it. Do not allow employees' cars to be parked in the back, and you probably need a motion-activated camera watching the trash can. If you see people driving by, your employees driving by at 3 or 4 in the morning, stopping and getting out and even walking towards the trash can, you've been robbed. Finally, though, and I think this is probably the most important thing, know the inventory. There are certain things that the people who work in your restaurant are going to steal. They're going to steal alcohol. They're going to steal steaks. They're going to steal shrimp and lobster. They're not going to steal heads of lettuce. So you have boxes of steaks in the cooler. You know how many you have. You know how many have been thawed out. It shouldn't happen that a whole box of lobster gets stolen and you don't know it. You should know how many times in this area are people going to order the surf and turf. It's not that common in order. You should know how many boxes of lobster, how many boxes of filet mignons. If people go out and they steal 2 or 3 boxes, at least you should know that you have been robbed. So that even if you don't catch them, even if they got away with it, you know it happened. So then now you have to check everything extra careful, and something really terrible happened, and somebody, you have to catch somebody, get them fired, maybe call the cops on them, whatever it is. But know the inventory, particularly the things that are most likely to be stolen. Know where they are. Check them regularly. You should know if there has been a major theft. If somebody steals 2 steaks and puts them in a bag and takes them home and eats them, that's different. But if somebody's stealing 2 boxes of sirloin, prime rib, or sirloin, or filet mignon, or lobster, or shrimp, you should know. Coupons and other types of discount items, discount cards, gift cards, the frequency cards, where you go in and you buy something for 10 times and they give you one free. All of these types of things, I've got a lot of stories about things happening that you heard earlier, about things happening with regard to discounts, gift cards, misuse of coupons. For example, servers will go and clip out 20 coupons out of the local free the free newspaper, the Tomahawk or whatever, giving people $5 off. So then every time somebody comes in and they buy something, they don't have a card, well, the server takes one of their coupons and puts it on there, and they get to pocket $5. That coupon works like cash. The coupon works like cash. So the things to do, check even cashiers in stores using their own coupons and putting the coupons in and taking cash out. Check for excessive coupon. Now, this is internal theft. This is not something, a scam that's done by customers. Internal theft. Somebody putting a bunch of coupons in the register, $20 worth of coupons in the register, taking $20 out. Check for excessive coupon acceptance. How much coupons on average do the average server get? Over the course of a month, if you have a server, and the reason that these people almost always get caught is that they start off real small. They start off coming in with, $20 worth of coupons, and then they put the $20 in, and at the end of the night, they pocket $20. Well, then they say, well, that works so well. Let me try 50. Let me try 100. Let me try 200. And next thing you know, they've got all the, their couponing is way in excess of everybody else's. Like in a restaurant example, make the customer sign the coupon. Compare coupons, items, sales against usage. That's going to catch the customer that comes in and tries to use a coupon that they're not supposed to, but it's not going to catch necessarily the cashier that just sticks the coupon in. And so the cash register should have an SKU level verification, and they should be, when you check out at the end of the shift, the cash register should identify how many coupons came in. And the manager needs to check that. When you do your reconciliation, the amount of coupons should equal whatever the ticket says. That's the amount of coupons that we took. Now that's not going to that'll solve the problem in a restaurant example. In a store example, but in a restaurant example where you have servers that are pulling their own coupons out, pocketing the customer's cash, and then pocketing the customer's cash by using that coupons, you have to use extra care. You have to use extra care for those kind of things. You may have to get the manager to sign off on a coupon, so that whenever the customer uses it, the manager has to sign it, or the coupon has to be scanned, or it has to be stamped, and then the receipt that the customer gets, or the little bill that the customer gets, you can audit that and see whether it has the coupon on it. So in other words, when the customer comes up and they pay, there's the little receipt that they get, but it should match the receipt that's on the thing, and it should say whether there's a coupon or not. So at the end of the night, you have a server checking out. You need to randomly audit, as a manager, you need to randomly audit to see that the coupons that have been accepted really come from the customers, not from the server pocketing money. Discount and gift cards need to be treated like cash, reconcile as if they were cash. I have the Charlie's Steakery example that I talked about earlier, where one high school has got somebody stole a whole bunch of these. Limit and access the codes on these, and do not use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and other stupid things as the password to go in and activate those cards. So you need to keep those cards in a place where they're locked, and they need to be treated just like they were cash. And then you have to reconcile for those things just like they were cash. Now, I've got finally some kind of general solutions that I'm going to give, and some of these you can stick in your answer in different places. First of all, try to develop this natural, instinctive feel for the inventory, particularly the expensive items, the things that are most likely to be stolen. Update the computer inventory more frequently. I know I've talked with the students of mine that are managers at Lowe's and Home Depot, where they sell, very high ticket items in many cases, and they regularly check their inventory. So you shouldn't only find out when you do the annual physical inventory of the store that you have a shrinkage issue. You should find out more easily. Make regular audits or checks of problematic items. In a restaurant, your lobster steak, that kind of thing that we talked about earlier. At the very least, in a jewelry store, your high-end jewelry or high-end ring case, at least you should know when you have been robbed quickly. Finally, we did talk about this earlier, but, try not to hire people that are thieves. Hire and retain knowledgeable, well-trained, vigilant employees for loss prevention. I think sometimes people put some of their worst people in loss prevention because they can't do anything else, and that's a mistake. Place extra emphasis on shrinkage prevention when you're meeting with your management teams or you're doing debriefings, when you're meeting with the employees. If you place attention on a subject as the manager, as the boss, then other people will pay attention. If you do not put emphasis on it, they will not pay attention. And that is it for Module 13.